it's Mary Ellen, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things related to the storytelling industry. If you don't already know me, I write nonfiction under my real name, Mary Ellen Quigley, and romance under my pen name, M.E. Laverne. And in today's video, we are going to talk about a hard topic for me, which is what to do if you just don't think your writing is good enough. Now, this is going to be a little bit of author real talk with you guys. I do this quite often on this channel, at least I try to, because the one thing I promised myself was that if I was going to do an AuthorTube channel, it was going to be real talk, right? Like, we're gonna be honest about how things are going, about emotions, very transparent, because I feel like that's important. There's not as many people as there should be being open and honest about this stuff on the internet. So about 6 or 7 months ago, I did do a video called Battling Imposter Syndrome. I will link it up here in case you haven't seen it. But this is going to be a very different, similar topic, but not, if that makes sense. So in the previous video, I talked about how I compare myself to other authors. And a lot of times I feel like I'm just not as good as the other authors. This video is very similar in that it's talking about my feelings about my writing career. But instead of comparing myself to other authors, it's just my writing career in general. So I'm kind of letting you guys know where I'm at in my headspace. I'm also going to preface this by saying that this could just be depression ramping up again, because I was talking to my sister a few weeks ago and I told her, like, I think I might have seasonal affective disorder, because I have a friend who has that. And every year, right after Christmas, I will just get so depressed. I don't know why. I think it's just because it gets gloomy and cold and blah outside. And then it takes me months. Like, I don't dig out of that depression until springtime. So this is just my normal seasonal depressed era that I go through every year. And I have a really hard time. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have a really hard time. I always speak financial terms. Q1, January through March, is very difficult for me every year. And that's why, like, I think I may have like some kind of seasonal affective disorder. I don't know, but I get all up in my feels and I have a really rough time just functioning until springtime hits. Once, like, we get towards Easter, it's like the clouds part and I'm happy as a clam all the way up to Christmas, because Christmas is my favorite holiday. And then after Christmas, it's like, it's the Christmas letdown. And then I hate everything for like 2-3 months. But anyway, that's where I'm at today. So some of this could just be my depression, but I wanted to talk through it with you guys because looking at the stats videos that I ended the year with, looking at all of the things with social media that we're talking about, we recently, last weekend, we went through the whole TikTok is banned, TikTok's not banned, now TikTok might be banned again. Nobody knows what's going on with TikTok thing here in the US. And I really just found myself feeling like I'm up against a wall in my writing career. So here's a couple things, and I'm just going to talk. So this may be rambling and maybe a little bit out of order, but I'm just going to talk to you guys about kind of what's going on mentally with me in my writing career. First of all, in the last few weeks, something I like to do when I'm going through this depressed era is I go back and I read favorite books. So I will go back and I'll revisit all the books I fell in love with. So I'll go back and I'll read, you know, the J.R. Ward Black Dagger Brotherhood series all the way through. I'll read the 7 series through. I'll read some of my favorite paranormal romances from the early days. I love the early Dark series by Christine Feehan. Recent stuff, not so much, but I like to go back and read, like, all of those favorites. And there's a whole list. Like, I'll go back and reread a whole list of stuff. And it's kind of like my safety blanket to make me feel better about being depressed about everything. It kind of took me on this reminiscing about how I even got into my writing career and being really confused about what I want to do moving forward. I know that I love to write. I know that I want to make this a career. Obviously, I have my 5-year plan I'm doing with you guys, but I don't think I'm very good at writing romance. I said what I said. I don't know that I'm very good at writing romance. I have sent in my most recent 2 books to beta readers, kind of on the back end. That should have probably been done before I released them, and got some feedback. And then I'm looking at my books and comparing with other people, which I probably shouldn't do. And I'm looking at craft books because you guys know one of my big goals I talked about was going back and really looking at the craft and like, am I writing to market? Am I plotting well? Do I have a good story? And I'll be honest with you guys, I have come to the consensus of I just don't have very good stories. The idea is strong. The execution of that idea is not. Even though I have been writing for over a decade, I don't feel like my ability to portray romance has really improved. I have it in my head. I don't know how other authors do it, but in my head, what I'm writing is basically like a movie in my head, right? I can see the characters. I can see it's like a movie that plays in my mind. And basically, I'm taking the movie that's in my head and I'm attempting to put that into words so that somebody could read those words and see the picture in my head. But there's a disconnect because I'm not getting the full picture onto words, onto paper, but on words. And so my stories, if I look at them objectively, they fall flat. The main thing about writing a romance novel is that you need to feel connected to the characters and then in turn feel like those characters are connected to each other. It needs to be an emotional pull into the romance book, right? There's obviously different versions of that. Some people like to read erotica and they don't care. They just want it to be all sexy times. That's fine. But in traditional romance, right, it is, two people fall in love happily ever after, right? And I am not good at creating the emotional connection to my characters and knowing how to do that well. That is a skill, I feel like. I feel like it's something that you can learn over time. But it really made me think of like, oh, this is so hard to even say. I started this pen name, Emmy Laverne, because I wanted to write romance under it, right? I'm not good at writing romance. I think I'm realizing that I'm a much better consumer of romance, and I'm good at reviewing books and objectively giving commentary and feedback, and I love doing beta reading for people because I love being that person that gives feedback. But I don't know that I myself am good at putting it out for other people. And it is really in the last few weeks, as my depression has ramped up, it has made me question whether I should be writing romance. That's hard for me to say because I have put so much time and effort into building a career that is not really a career, but I mean, I've worked on this pen name now for a few years now, with the intention of this being the thing that is my thing. Like, I'm going to be a romance author. But how if you're not very good at it? And while I do think that this is something I could learn to be good at, as I think I need to go back to the basics and learn how to do the craft, like how do you write a romance, read books and try to incorporate some of the things you learn. I also know that I was already up against a tough battle because I write clean romance. And to be 100% realistic, the best sellers in today's romance world are not writing clean romance. They're not writing clean romance. I did look into things like back when I first started on the romance trail. I don't know what word we're going to go for. I consulted with American Christian fiction writers because I am a Christian. I go to church. So my thought was like, maybe I go that route because obviously Christian fiction is clean. But I also am not the cookie cutter traditional Christian person. I am the Christian who also is open-minded about things. And so what I found was that because I did join for like a couple of years. It's a great organization, actually. If you're a Christian writer, I loved American Christian fiction writers. They were absolutely fabulous, great workshops, great people, like 100% loved being there. But I had friends that I had made through the organization that became traditionally published Christian fiction writers. And when I tell you that you have to toe a line, because I'm going to call it what it is, because I can, as a Christian, I can say this. We're very judgmental as a group of people. I personally am not, but as a group of Christian people tends to be highly judgmental, as you know. And so there were things that if you were partaking in certain things, you could be canceled, essentially. So this person goes to a non-denominational, more modern-like church, which is what I go to, and they went out to dinner with their husband and had a glass of wine. And when I tell you they had hate comments and people boycotting their book because they had a glass of wine at dinner with their husband. And I was like, I can't live like that. I cannot live like that. So I didn't want to go the Christian fiction route. But I have found that the clean fiction route, which is, or closed door, or whatever you want to call it, has been such an uphill battle. I had a brief moment like a year ago where I could be like, forget it. I'm just going to write naughty bits in my books and everybody's going to be banging and I'll become a bestseller. But I don't like books like that. I don't mind books. You guys know we've had this conversation. I don't mind books with sex scenes, but I want there to be, excuse me, that was very ladylike. I want there to be emotional connection first. Like, bang away, but I need to believe you're in love with each other first. Otherwise, it's skeevy to me personally. But I know people who just love a book where they bang all day. That's fine. That's why we have different genres and different levels of spice in our romance books, because we are cool like that. Cool like that, I tell you. But anyway, I don't know. I feel like I'm already in an uphill battle because I'm writing clean and closed door. But because you're writing clean and closed door, it is even more important to make sure the characters have a connection, because it is very easy to explain a connection when people have been sleeping together, because you naturally, just anybody who's slept with anybody knows, you naturally feel more connected to a person when you've been all over each other, right? So it's a little bit easier to kind of explain, because you can have them have tender sex, which then shows a growth in the relationship. But if they're not banging, you have to portray that to your reader in a different way. And that's what I'm not good at. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I'm all up in my feels and I'm just like, maybe I'm not a romance author, but what else would I write? Like what? Like, I don't know what else I would do, because this has been the basis. I mean, I have a whole folder full of just ideas and they're all love stories. All of them. They're love stories. I don't know. You guys know I also write nonfiction. When I first started off in nonfiction, I originally wanted to be a person who wrote devotionals, like for Bibles, but same reason why I'm not a part of American Christian fiction writers. It's a tough area to get into because your life will be under a microscope. And I tend to be very open-minded about things. So I don't want to have my life under a microscope because I'm not a perfect person. I cuss a lot. I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it would work well. I love doing the paranormal books with my sister. I love those. To me, those are fun to write. So should I go that route? I don't know. I think I just had this realization that, like, I'm working so hard on trying to sell my books, but they're not good. The only book I actually love is that first one I wrote, Wildside, because I actually do think that's a really good story and I did a good job with it. But everything else I've written since then, I don't think is very good. And I know that no author really thinks their work is perfect, but I think I'm struggling. I'm struggling to figure out where I want to go in my career. And I feel like a lot of people go through this and we don't necessarily talk about it. And also with the rise of AI, it concerns me because I'm on Kindle Unlimited. And when I tell you that you can find books that are just blatantly written with AI, like the big scandal that's out like in the last week is the author that left the ChatGPT prompt in the book. I can't remember the author's name, but Google it because it's all over the internet right now. And I'm just like, this is what we're up against. This is what we're up against. And the sad part is I've tested out different AI models just for fun with friends to see. The stories that they can write are not horrible. They need a lot of work. They read like their AI. They're not written like a person, but it's pretty darn good stories that you can spit out on some of these models. And as a writer, that absolutely terrifies me because somebody could spit out a very like non-emotional story, take some time to edit and develop that, and have a book written in like a month and have it become a bestseller, and they didn't even come up with the idea themselves. It's like we're up against so much right now as authors that I feel like if you are going to write a book, it needs to be like a really well done, good book. And that's just something I have not produced in years. So again, I'm not making any major decisions right now because I do realize this is probably my seasonal depression that's making my mind go this way. But I am really struggling right now to write because I don't know what to write. And so one of the things I think I'm focusing on in the time being is turning Wildside into the audiobook, and then also working on our podcast stuff. Like we have a book from me and my sister are writing together. But I'm really kind of questioning everything. So I wanted to open the discussion, right, to all of my fellow authors on here. And wow, the shadow from my window makes me look like I didn't blend my, look at that. It's the shadow from my window. I swear I blended my makeup. Anyway, for any of my other author friends out there, I would absolutely love to hear from you guys. Like, do you ever go through these feelings of like, I'm just no good and maybe I should hang it up? Like, is it just me who has this, or does anybody else go through this? Because I'm all up in my feels and I don't like it. Anyway, so a happy hump day. You guys get a video a little bit early from me this week, but Mary's depressed. How are you? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, give me a thumbs up, like, share, comment, all the stuff. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.